Let's get this party started, shall we? Okay, so this is Crypto Mystic welcoming you to Pandora's Box officially. On August 31st, 2022. This is our last day of the month of August. My God, time is flying by. Thank you for joining us. We're so excited to have you here. And today is going to be a fun and thought-provoking AMA, I'm imagining. We're going to be talking about, of course, important updates about the project and the team, and we'll be also hosting a roundtable discussion on the topic of crypto adoption. So I know some of you have already seen our announcement and the topic of the discussion, and we are going to give you a sneak peek of parts of our research that is included in our pitch deck. Joanna will be telling you more about the pitch deck in a moment. But we're going to share our thoughts on the topic of crypto adoption. I think I can enunciate today. Thank you. And we'd like to hear your thoughts on that as well. So please let us know, why aren't all your friends and family members into crypto yet? We would love to hear your thoughts. And thank you for everyone who has already submitted some answers to that question. We do have a couple of prizes. We're going to be gifting 0.025 BNBs each to 2 people with the best answers to this question. So, like I mentioned, thank you to everyone who has already posted. Keep your answers coming. We want to hear from you, and you will definitely have a chance to lend your voice to the conversation a little bit later on in this AMA. And as always, you will have a chance to ask your questions to the team. I know Ganyo is here for that, ready to go. So let's start with you, Joanna, my dear. What updates do you have for us today?
Yes. Hello, hello, community. So since the last time we talked, several members of the team were ill a couple of weeks ago. For that, we had to reschedule our next AMA with Crypto Bumble. The new date will be announced soon, but also this week on Friday, we'll have an upcoming AMA with Red Wave, which is a social media platform, and we'll also be posting and reposting and retweeting about the date and the time for you to join in. It will not be on Telegram, but it will be on their Twitter space. So since last time we brought some updates for the project, we have already initiated conversations with the potential investors and VCs with the detailed pitch deck, which will show little bits of parts of our research and parts of our deck here today. So keep watching and keep listening. And they have received the deck, and they're currently, in the consideration phase to join in and invest in us. Also, another update is that the partnerships explorations continue with promising possibilities with high-level players, but also regarding our marketing and visibility. So our team has been dedicated to patenting the technology we have been creating and have talked about in other AMAs. And alongside them, we have a new member on board, which is the Vice President of Operations. So yeah, that's it on my side on updates on Unbox. And we'll be sending out soon the invite to our AMA this week with Red Wave.
Thank you, Joanna, for that. And just to close that loop with the team members that were ill, they're feeling much better. Thank you. So we're back in full swing here. All hands on deck, as it were. Cool. So I want to maybe just open it up for questions at the moment before we dive into the roundtable. If there are any pressing questions from the community for the team, you can ask them now, and then we'll go into the roundtable. And if there are no questions at this time, we'll go right into the round table. So let me just check the chat here. It looks
I have a question.
great, fantastic.
What's in the box?
Artie? Where have you been? Well, we did a bit of a reveal of what's in the box. So who wants to take this one? Viking, Surian, Olo. Who's feeling called here?
I vote
No,
Surya.
Rafi, who's taking this.
Okay.
I second the vote for Torian.
So what's in the box? In the box, currently there is infrastructure surrounding a non-hackable digital identity and everything that comes with it, essentially. It is yeah.
I would like to summarize it. I guess was Crypto Mystic who created the beautiful Year in the Box. But guess what? You have the keys to your own freedom to kind of round up the sovereignty part of the technology we're working and patenting.
Yes, it's around. I mean, the beauty of it is that it's essentially giving you're the box, but you also have the key to the box, and you now have full authority, control, sovereignty over your own identity. So that was one of the things we talked about. And there's many more amazing, fantastic, and exciting things in the box too, right? It keeps coming. So think of the box as like, you know, those Russian dolls where there's like a Russian doll and then another one and another one and another one.
Okay.
That.
Matryoshka.
Yeah. Matryoshka, that's
Small
right.
portion. The outer shell of the box has been revealed, but of course there are many more surprises coming. I love the concept of self-sovereign identity. I think this is something that can mean the difference between complete free digital world, some kind of like Uber democracy that is possible, right? Using correct blockchain technology and using techniques like privacy preserving techniques like self-sovereign identity, versus what it can also become, because blockchain, let's not kid ourselves, it's a neutral force or power, so if you will. I mean, if our governments are so-called democratic governments use it in a way that China also uses it, the internet will not be so free and open in the future. So I think these kind of technologies are essential to protect our human rights. So beautiful.
Precisely.
100%.
Yes.
I want to add also to something that our friends over at Sovereign Nature is working on. That is working on ways to make nature self-sovereign, which means that what we're touching on is not just one movement. It's a movement that goes beyond just our project, but it's a puzzle piece to a future that can be more sustainable, both for your own data and identity and everything, but also the ecosystems that is surrounding us as well.
Yes, and I think the other really important piece to mention here is that this particular digital identity is non-hackable, and that ties into the topic of of today's roundtable discussion. You know, when we're posing the question, why aren't all your friends and family members into crypto yet? One of the themes that keeps coming up again and again and again, and to no surprise of anyone on this call, I imagine, is security, safety in crypto. And because of all the number of ways that people can be defrauded or scammed or hacked or whatever, like that's a really, really key element. And so I just wanted to mention that piece here, because the non-hackable digital identity is definitely going to be a key to better adoption, right?
And better
Great
optimism.
question.
Yeah, and this was also the
Artie?
this was also the part that was unique for the patent, right? This is like because self-sovereign identity is widespread. This is like a specific crypto-catered patent that is enabling this type of security, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Correct.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. And Suryan, you had something else you wanted to add here?
So are we jumping into the whole thing now with discussing why crypto is a weird one? I'll give my piece. So for my experience, I've been in crypto for about 4 years now. Through that time, I've been giving updates to my family all the time, and I've had a lot of successes. I've had a few downturns, but they never got interested in it until they saw the successes, and they encouraged me otherwise when I had my downturns. I think the thing about crypto is that just like the internet was back when it was first released, it's a very new concept. um, 2020 helped. It made it a little more mainstream. It made it a little more accessible for people who wanted to get in on the whole dog hype, but it didn't really bring in too many individuals who wanted to see how they could evolve and develop it. Even now, we're only looking at companies like Facebook, Facebook's Meta, so on and so forth, that are having regulatory and image problems by releasing NFTs or integrating those into their platforms. There's an incredible amount of misinformation, yes, which makes it harder, obviously, for me to get my friends and family in. But there is also the issue of success. And unfortunately, or not, in every new industry, people who pioneer those industries will either burn horribly, which is really the main thing, or they will succeed in that industry. And those stories go on in the real world as well. They tell their friends, they tell their family about it, even if it's to their shame, and their friends or family write it off as a lost cause. And this happens more often than not, which really brings the issue of what we're trying to achieve in the world. And that's sort of the issue with mass adoption. It's the same problem that we're looking for everywhere in the world, and the same problem I think we're going to experience moving forward in having crypto adopted. It's not the level of technology, because most people can use a phone and not have a problem. It's the fact that there's a lot of bad news, and frankly, nobody really wants to talk about the good stuff.
Very, very beautifully said. I mean, this is the thing, right? How does mass adoption happen? Um, Technically, there are so many barriers, but now we not have only have those technical barriers to best, but we also have the mental and reputation barriers to best, because we had this, well, like you said, the dog face and yeah, let's be honest, a lot of dishonest projects that just were building not really to build, but more to hype a project, not looking at the future. A lot of copycats, clones. They just took some simple code from GitHub and they released something and never touched it again, right? With all that reputation damage that the whole space is getting, this is something we now also have to get over. However, I think this exact the blessing is the curse here, and because crypto is so open, we cannot stop the scam projects, right? And but that's the whole point of having an open blockchain. And sadly, I mean, we had this discussion here in the Netherlands with this tornado cash guy that was being arrested. Many people were, many friends of me were actually protesting in Amsterdam, and I was like, I cannot say if he was arrested because he wrote open source code. I cannot say if he had any connections with illegal hacker groups or the Korean government NSA thing, which was like stealing money from people and then laundering it using tornado cash. But that's not the point. The point is that are we really discussing if privacy is is a human right or not? Is this discussable? I mean, it's in our law system that we have right to privacy, and there is a reason for it. Because if criminals can abuse having privacy, dictators have been abusing not having privacy tremendously in the past, and we can see dictatorships abusing not having privacy in many countries in the world currently. Is it more like that our leaders want to become like that and remove our privacy from us? Why are we discussing that privacy is a bad thing and attacking projects that provide privacy, right? It's not about this guy who was arrested for whatever reason. It's about the general thing, like, is privacy possible? The same happens with decentralization, because there we cannot, if it's something is really decentralized, you cannot stop those projects copying and cloning and also generating NFTs of yet another dog, right? How many dog coins are there, and NFTs and whatever? But this is exactly the strength. You cannot stop them, and which means the human race needs to evolve above that and start to learn to really appreciate real projects that are really building something. Yeah, I think that's why it will probably take some time before we get mass adoption on a psychological level. And then there is, of course, also the technical level, which we are not quite there yet, but many projects are currently working on universal profiles, things that make this much easier for you, hardware wallets that connect much easier than the current ones, those kind of projects. So technically we will get there, and it's up to us as a human race to also get there on a psychological level.
I will also add this note. If we are looking towards mass adoption on a grand scale, how do we feel about the regulation that's being pushed forward right now? So there are some jurisdictions out there, I will quote Belarus on here, who have opened up the use of smart contracts in their legal infrastructure, meaning that you're able to use a smart contract essentially to sign off. It is the use of the blockchain, despite not being something that is typically done within the whole cryptocurrency industry as a whole. Where do we stand on regulation pushing forward adoption? As a aside to this question, it's something that I've often wondered myself and something that I research consistently because not only is it of interest to me, but it's of interest to the projects I work for.
I guess it's essential because whether we like it or not, the legislation and law is being created by governments, and we cannot just like snap our fingers and not have them anymore. So the only way this is ever going to be adopted is through them, and they seem to have this CBDC illusion of grandeur right now. I don't know if they're jealous on China or whatever, but they have to get over that. And actually, the democratic countries, people have to demand a fair system. And then I'm sure politicians will stand up that will surface this to the people if there are enough people wanting this. So the only danger is because the government should represent the people, right? The only danger is that people are too busy swiping left or right in whatever app to care about this and to care about their privacy, to care about their human rights. So everything stands and falls with people caring about it. And then I think regulation will come. And it's heartwarming to see that some countries are actually already moving this way.
That's reasonable. I like that. I think one of the core issues that I've faced really working in the space is how do I explain this to somebody who doesn't know what I'm doing? It's a very difficult industry to understand, mostly because it's not something that many people look into. It's like ornithology, the study of birds. We know that there's a study of birds out there, but we don't necessarily know the intricacies of it, nor how it really works out for people long term. I think there is a core disconnect between people who are entering the space, people who are established, and those who perhaps have very little knowledge of it, but look forward to seeing it in the future. When it comes to regulation, it opens those barriers quite a bit, because if you have a set amount of rules on how to conduct it, I mean, we have countries out there who are repealing or putting forward new legislation all the time in order to regulate. But the core issue will always be, will that regulation, as you said, be fair? But will it also be an issue of whether we can establish a set limit, essentially, for individuals entering the space? Can we give them the safety they want? Is there going to be any later repercussions for that? And how is that going to affect some of the oldest tokens out there?
So yeah, about give the people the safety that they want. I have like some thoughts going on there that I discussed on ETCC in Paris, ETH Barcelona, and just like put it out there with the crypto people, and it's a little bit controversial. So initially, people didn't want to really think about it, but if you think, but in the end, I luckily got some good responses on this, because I was thinking like, we create a fair ecosystem with our coin, with our in general, many projects do this. They create a coin and they have a dream, right, of a better decentralized future, and this is what they promote their project with. And then they have a coin, and in essence, the ecosystem is well thought out. The people are able to use this coin to transact value back and forth. However, what every time happens and what every time hurts projects is that then this closed ecosystem, which could be a very healthy one, is now opened up to, through a centralized exchange or a decentralized exchange, to a lot of money coming in, basically turning all the idealistic people with fear and greed dollar signs in their eyes, pumping the stuff up, letting people put more value in, like, oh, we're going to be rich, and then extracting the value out of it, pulling it out, and putting the hammer on everybody's head. And all those people were initially idealistic. They loved the dream, they loved the idea, and they wanted to make that happen. And then by opening it up to a pool of big money coming in, the whole thing got destroyed, right? And this is not, I mean, if you start a crypto project and you say, no, we're not going to list on an exchange, all your your whole community says, no, we don't want to list it because we want to make money on our investments, right? Not knowing that there are like pools of big sea monsters out there that are way better at making money and that they will statistically probably lose. So I still cannot like get behind this vicious cycle that happens time again and again with projects, right? And I think it's time for some projects to just say, we will not list. We just have like a closed ecosystem, and people are perfectly happy transacting value with each other, and we're not opening up to monsters coming in to the project. But I know this is controversial, and I think almost no project today would be able to do this without yeah, disgruntled community members, or because the world is just like this, right? It's like saying we should not use money, but we should like barter for our daily groceries or something, because otherwise we are supporting the bank. So it is a little bit controversial, but there is a pattern there that is not good for the usual person, and which is very good for the pockets of Wall Street funds and hedge funds investing in the crypto market right now. So the money is being moved from ordinary people to big hedge funds, and this is bothering me because I think this actually hurts the crypto space as a whole, and it hurts our progress and development. And actually, it bends it towards the side of bad instead of good. The China versus Uber democracy thing, which the future can look like, and it will probably be somewhere in the middle, and things will get regulated and will not be 100% decentralized. But yeah, this was my controversial idea, and I hope I didn't hurt too much people with it.
No, I keep a very open mind with these things. And I believe your idea has merit even on a microeconomic scale. I, I mean, we've seen the same things back in older times when you had a central currency, sure, but it's only traded within a single ecosystem. It's the same concept with Hacksilver and the Norse. It's good for value there, way by the pound sort of thing, but it wasn't necessarily used to trade outside of that group, and it worked. It worked because you didn't invite anyone that could potentially upset the balance. You didn't do anything that could potentially damage what you have. And even though that the supply was inflating, uh, a lot of it was used and traded away as gold or metal couplings or bars, or made into jewelry, which took it out of the system entirely. I think your idea has merit. I don't think it's that controversial because it's very similar to things we've experienced before, but it is new enough and modern enough to fit into a more complex economy. So genuinely, don't be afraid to say that out loud. I think it's a very, very forward-thinking idea.
I think also that we're at a point where technology is breaking so far past where regulation can even think about paying up, no, keeping up, which means that this leaves a little bit of responsibility essentially to some of the bigger players in the crypto space itself, to essentially go after regulation in ways that can be beneficial for the space. Because if we leave it up to regulators or big tech or whoever already has the money and drag to do this, like, it will not be looking as prominent for the space as it could if the people that actually knows what is going on goes more after the space. But we are in at this point in a space where the crypto people, essentially the majority of them, does not fit together with the business structure, the business world, the business money, essentially, because they are thinking on so drastically different planes that they don't match up usually. So the builders in crypto very often, they don't give a shit about what happens in regulation at all because they're just building.
Yeah, and this is enabled by um, um, these purely decentralized blockchains, right? So I think that you cannot regulate a truly decentralized blockchain. However, so if this is going to be regulated, there are two ways. The first one is you regulate the blockchain and it's not truly decentralized anymore. Yeah, you basically the government or some authority gets a hook into the core system, or you keep the core system decentralized, and a project, a smart contract group, would basically get an authority in there with a certain role. So it can be, um, uh, for example, in a DAO, the government gets some say, and this is at smart contract level, so not at protocol layer one level or something. And then suddenly you keep the blockchain, yeah, completely decentralized and not within the power of any one government. However, your smart contract plays by the rule of a government, while another smart contract might not do that. But then the government could say our local banks are only allowed to interact with those smart contracts legally, and then you have a little bit of the best of both worlds. Then a truly decentralized blockchain, which you can trust, and even the government cannot kill, can be combined with the government exerting some control over some elements, which they are definitely going to want to do, and which is definitely required before any mass adoption can happen, I guess.
Can
And
I
it's
share?
Go ahead, Ola. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So can I share a slightly brighter observation on the industry?
Absolutely.
So I've only been actively investing in the crypto industry since 2017, but I've been aware of and observing it since more like 2013, 2014. And back then, Bitcoin was an obscure phenomenon that was basically only used by cypherpunks and on the dark web to buy drugs and stuff like that. And just watching the industry evolve since then to where it is now, I think it's actually pretty amazing at the level of adoption that it's achieved in so many years, because now we have publicly traded companies and hedge funds and institutions, and some people's parents even have Bitcoin and cold storage in that demographic. So that to me, going from where it was back then to where it is now, even in this period of time, despite all of the failures that the industry has seen and fraud and scams and stuff, I think it's still impressive and amazing for the feat that this industry is trying to accomplish. It's not something that can be done overnight or in a short period of time. And the progress, I think, is more positive than negative.
What I see around this also is that the smaller wallets are the ones that is buying a lot of this dip all the way, while a lot of the bigger whales are actually distributing their coins to new wallets and new investors, which means that people are understanding that, okay, it's a low price, but keep buying the dip essentially. And there and also many more is now understanding the dollar cost average concept and whatnot, which is a sign that people are starting to actually understand a little bit more about economics. My great grand no my great yeah my great grandmother would be she is 90, end of her 90s, and she understands very well economics, and she was always told that back then you would be a fool not to understand how the economic everything surrounds. But that changed all around the war, around the Second World War, and you just don't have that knowledge anymore. People don't understand why gold or silver had value back then, or other type of economic exchanges. Like, and this is where we're going again. It's just needs time for the societies to adopt and to understand the systems that is around us now. And it's not necessarily about understanding what crypto is, it's about understanding some of what it does.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's essential. The evolution of people, and I think yeah, you're absolutely right, Deckard, that this is net positive. So I see that this adoption is going that way, and that more and more people are um, educating themselves and waking up, if you will. But my main concern with government involvement with crypto and regulation, and even like large companies involving them, the biggest involvement are value extraction methodologies by hedge funds. The government, our government in the Netherlands, was really into crypto already, and also Dutch banks in 2016, 2017. I did many crypto projects with those parties actually, and they were super open, super positive about the ideas. They invited groundbreaking thinkers, CryptoPunks and cypherpunks from the US that were also the founding fathers of the internet, to think with the government about governance structures and things like that. And this kind of since 2020 to 2020, this was like peak moment, and after we got COVID and regulations and enforcement and the whole EU, I cannot speak for the US, started tightening, and basically I feel that everything is like moving in a less free way. There are more strong regulations. It feels like the leaders of the EU are not really knowing what they will do, what they are doing, and or what they are regulating. They just want control, and that's why they try to push CBDCs instead of the open internet. It was like only there was like a hair difference between all crypto being banned here, right? With some kind of stupid regulations. Luckily, somebody put a stop to that. But it is dangerous because those they are like it feels like they are trying to get more and more grip and control, and the free decentralized blockchains do not fit in that agenda. However, eventually it will be up to the people, and there is positive factor. So let's hope that factor is quick and strong enough to counteract the negative factor of the current government power, so to say, that we feel here. I feel like I'm getting some news from the US, and I think if the US will get a free and open blockchain internet thing going, that the US will have, even if they will ban it at first, eventually they will then unban it and just do what the US does, like Europe always has done. So there is that, and maybe you guys can say a little bit more about how these things are, how the factor currently is going in the US, because I would be interested to hear this from people that actually live there. I just get news here, you know.
Does anyone want to speak to this on the team? What's happening in the US?
Deckard, maybe you have some insights.
So I think, based on what I know and my observation, I think that the U.S. is doing more positive or less heinous things than the EU is in regards to legislation. And there's a lot more resistance to heinous legislation in the US than the EU.
Yeah, so that's actually a good thing then, right? If we look at history and know that the EU will eventually anyway do what the US does, so
Yeah.
it means we're good.
I actually live in the I live in the most highly regulated state in the U.S. in regards to cryptocurrency at a state level, which basically made crypto and dealing with crypto and exchanges and everything illegal in the state that I live in. There's only one centralized exchange that's legally allowed to operate in my state. So ultimately, it's not just up to the federal government of the U.S. There's also state legislation individually that has an impact on but it has a much smaller impact on the industry as a whole and the world as a whole.
Yeah, interesting. And is it with those states legislation, if the centralized government or the country government decides that they can overrule that, right? So if like Washington would make taxes and crypto legal, they would not stand that. Then they would have to revise their local legislation.
Yeah, for the most part.
So it's just because they're not like clear about it yet.
Yes.
That this is like something which is left to the local, the state legislation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Correct.
Interesting. Yeah, and of course, this is like the psychological part, and then we have the technological part, which is also a huge barrier to mass adoption, right? All our family members, grandmothers, parents, brothers, sisters that are not so tech savvy, how will they ever interact in a safe way with the blockchain? And then these tools that Pandora's box is working on, and yeah, other systems that are currently being engineered by teams are essential. And I really like the universal profile one. And this sounds weird for the real cypherpunk, but it basically, when you create an account, it basically has a custodied private key for you. So you just have a username, an email address, and a password, like all your other accounts. And you can even click forgot password, and then they email you the new password. So this is not so safe, of course, as managing your own private keys if you know how to manage a private key. But for many people, it might be more safe. And then this would not be acceptable if it would just be that, because then it wouldn't be decentralized, right? It would actually be pretty centralized through the custodian of private keys. However, these universal profiles are actually multi-sig smart contracts, like a Gnosis wallet or something like that, and you can choose to generate as many multi-sig keys as you want, and hide ledgers in all your family houses safes, or even in airport safes if you would want backup and security, like some cypherpunks are doing now. I think even Vitalik had the key to his funds before Shiba sent him so much Shiba that he actually had to go get his keys to do something with it. I think he explained in the interview with I'm not sure if it was Rogan or if it was actually another interviewer, but he explained that he had his private key cut into 3 pieces and spread them to 3 different locations or something like that. All those kind of cryptographic techniques to make it really sure and make you even robbery proof and things like that, they are possible in those universal profiles as well, if you want it. But it can be as simple as your Google account that you log into. And I think this could, even though it's not so cypherpunky, it could be a key to mass adoption.
This is also touching very much on what one part of what we're building, by the way, to ensure that you can have this system of login available to systems all around, with control over only the data that you actually have to give, and all of these things. So this will be built into most of our systems. Will be a function that is verifying identity, but that doesn't mean that your identity leaks out to all these systems. Like you can have it's just a multi-system of verifying login that is not losable, which something you're also talking about, like multi-sig and all of these, like as at least how systems stand today, this is essential once you're starting to have essential or critical funding in crypto. And like now we're building project also, every wallet we have is a multi-sig between trusted members within our team, and it's something that everybody should consider if they have substantial amounts of their net worth in crypto, is to have ledger systems. And even in with the ledger systems, you have multi-sig, then you have a even stronger security system.
Thank you. So I posted some slides in the main group, in the main chat, that are part of our pitch deck. And The last three I posted were really essentially the kind of the big categories that we've identified that are preventing mass adoption. And the first one, of course, and it's been spoken about many times in some of the answers from our members, as well as on this during this discussion, but it's fraud and all the many ways that people can be defrauded, whether it's through hacked or scams or identity theft or even like you mentioned, Artie, which is, you know, some projects actually are built with the intention of being a rug pull. Like the team has no intention of actually delivering a legitimate project, but it's like it's made with the only purpose of for the team to get, you know, the money and run kind of thing. So obviously, this is not what we're about here. And so Surya, and I know when you thought through the tokenomics and token mechanics, you were extremely careful about designing it so that it would promote longevity of this project. You want to speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit about it. I've been very careful, and as some of you may know also, is that in the beginning we had in our direction to have staking pools or claiming functions that was bi-weekly. Like we have been going through quite a few mechanisms and been talking to quite a few people that has been helping us quite a lot to understand what functions we can actually use and not have the like critical infrastructure problems or hackability or exploitability into it, which made us end up with how we're standing right now. Like just for holding the token, there will be direct reflections. There is no staking needed. There is no claiming needed. Yeah, and another thing is that we have also been working on how to build up a commonwealth system in a commonwealth pool into the project, which is essentially tokens that will be earning yield. They will be doing buybacks to increase the holding of it, which is essentially the community's pool of building and to the community's pool to make sure that, okay, you want to do something that the team is not doing, you can create teams and create conditions of how payment and whatnot. How this is going to look like exactly is still under designing, but it will be a critical function of our project.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's certainly when people start to do their due diligence and research into different projects, like really understanding how the token was set up makes a difference, right? Because it really reveals the intention and what can happen with it. So that's really a key factor in doing research and finding those projects that are actually legitimate and not meant to you know, to be a rug pull or scam. So fraud was obviously a big one. And then the second one we've identified is friction. And under friction, we have a lot of different aspects, but one of the ones was touched on already during this conversation, and it is the, you know, for those people who are not as tech savvy, managing their accounts, learning to navigate the different, you know, KYC and different accounts, and then sending coins, finding how to do it, binding coins that are not on exchanges yet, but dealing with MetaMask and all these types of things can be a challenge. And one of the things we found in our research when we were doing, you know, prepping for our deck, is looking at the, I also posted those slides, looking at the demographics of who's, you know, who has already, who is leading the crypto adoption essentially. And not surprisingly, we have in the lead the millennials, and we have the baby boomers that are, you know, they represent only 8.2% of the total. And when we also have a chart on that slide, which also shows the wealth distribution. And so we have here, we can clearly see that the baby boomers actually hold most of the wealth, but they're the ones that are reluctant to adopt crypto because they're more risk averse. They have less time. You know, if something happens to their retirement, to their savings, their IRAs, whatever the case may be, it would put them in a different, you know, in a difficult position, let's put it that way. So they're much more cautious when it comes to crypto. And also they're less tech savvy. They didn't grow up with technology the way the younger generations have. And the last one, of course, is frustration. Well, before I move on, was there anything else you guys wanted to talk to about friction and how some of the things we're building can help solve the friction problem? Syrian, Viking, hello. No, yes.
Well, I was gonna let Surion take the lead on this one, but so you're looking for the solution to friction, correct?
Yes, speaking to what we're working on to
Okay.
help ease friction. Mm-hmm.
So the best thing that we have for that is well, simply the SLPCS, the simple login protocol system, where when somebody enters into this system and they essentially gain their self-sovereign KYC, this essentially eliminates friction along the lines of turning on a 1970s computer versus turning on your computer today, and the difference you see there. There's a lot of people complaining about, it takes me a day to 3 days to even a week. I've seen some people just never get confirmed for KYC. So every single account that you need to make an account with that requires KYC, you're going to have to go through that waiting period. And a lot of people do these things one by one. So by the time they're done entering into crypto, they've already had to deal with it for about a month or two, just by getting different exchange accounts and figuring out how this works and all this and everything. The NDI, the non-hackable digital identity, which essentially is the sovereign identity, it fixes that, because now you have, say you need to get a punching bag off of Amazon, you need to get a Binance account, I'm going to need an FTX account. My buddy told me definitely get crypto.com, so I'm going there too. And then I need to find a bank that's going to work with my crypto, because my bank doesn't. And so essentially you're taking that whole journey and you're turning it into a click of a button. And so that, I do believe, is a very good way to relieve friction.
Absolutely.
Does that answer the question? Or
Yes, it's great. And I would even add, with the KYC process, it's not just the waiting period, but it's also so many times it doesn't even work. Like, you're trying to upload your thing and you have the swirl of death, the thing that swirls and swirls forever, and it still doesn't go through, and you try again and you try, and it's so frustrating, right? I mean, we've all been there. Or at least I certainly have. So there's that piece as well. And then you have the waiting, So this by doing it once and not having it to do it again and again and again in all these different ways, it certainly will also solve a lot of frustration
Yeah,
as well as
that
friction.
I think that was another one of our targets was that people and I've witnessed this personally is that we are encountered by a different type of technology every single time we try to go get a KYC. It's always something different. And that provider, they're essentially they've just seen an opportunity. They got some funding and they put out the best technology that they could with the funding that they had, which means that some KYC providers, yeah, you're going to run into that exact very problem where you've got this circle of death and you're trying to show your face from all these angles and they're like, yeah, no, it doesn't work. Maybe you should shave, you know?
Oh, get closer. No, to the right, to the left. No, now you're too close. Oh my God.
Yeah, like I can't explain how many KYCs I've actually just skipped. And just because it's been enough of this already, I'll go to a different exchange that is a different provider.
Right.
So now it's the exchange that's hurting
Mm-hmm.
because they're losing consumers left and right because
Mhm.
yeah, the consumer wants the product, but good Lord, if I got to go through that to get it, I'm not going to do that. I'll find it somewhere else. So when you have when you take and some of these facial recognition programs, I think that they're actually quite flawed, and just kind of thrown together by any dev that was available. But when you take that out of the equation and you start working with the retinal scan, then it's undeniable. You can't mess that one up. Not only that, but it's also unhackable.
Mhm.
And I know that there's a lot of people that are going to say, yeah, well, you say it's unhackable, but what if someone decides to take my eyeball out and use that? Well, I mean, that's going to suck because two people are going to be disappointed. You're going to be missing an eye and they're going to realize that actually doesn't work. So there will be a time when this is just recognized as, well, oh crap, they've got C2 technology. Never mind, move on to the next one. And that's kind of our goal. Our goal is to get not only have that stage well set, but to also get through it to where the consumer, well, how do I say this? The individual that isn't out to get anyone. They just want to do their own thing, earn their own, purchase their own, so on and so forth. I do believe personally that is a more common individual than you're going to find people who are trying to scam and rug and steal and hack. Yes, they exist, but in my opinion, they exist because of a social reason. They've been pushed so far to the outside of society where they have to fight for literally everything that yeah, this is what they've fallen into. This is the type of thinking that they've fallen into. But I guarantee you, if you couple C2 technology with this Commonwealth DAO program that we're working on, that Suryan introduced, well, now you're entering into a world where you don't need to do that. And I'm telling you, the number of people that are willing to do that kind of thing is going to drop drastically once there's much more kinder options, I guess, if you want to put it that way, much more kind options on the table. And that's what we're trying to bring.
That's a really good point. And I put a slide in the it's one of the first slides in our deck actually, where we have a sad pepe with all the the bad words surrounding him, and then we see the the global wealth distribution, and we can all see. So if you want to, go back to the chat at some point, you can take a look at it. The unfairness of this chart, where you have over 50% of the population, fighting over a very small percentage of the wealth. And this is what I think crypto, in its ideology, and a lot of the early adopters and people that have been in crypto for a long time are really wanting to change. And that will, like you said, Viking, bring just social change, because when people are not in a desperate situation of survival and whatnot, they behave differently. It just makes sense. So as more people have access to more wealth, things can get better for all of us. So it's a great point. Does anyone else have anything to add to either friction or frustration? Those were the last 2 points. Or anything else you want to add to the conversation?
I think friction and frustration are definitely, if you've been in crypto for about 5 minutes, then you pretty much understand those two. The fraud as well, but a lot of people don't really get into the fraud, and that's something I'm very, very excited about with this technology, is that we're essentially making fraud. You just can't. You can't. I mean, you can, but due to the nature of the blockchain, it's going to be on your record forever.
Yeah, it's going to be some speed bumps to do this repeatedly, or hopefully also to stop you to do it to begin with, is within this ecosystem at least. It's for sure one of the more interesting aspects that we're looking into.
Yeah, you might get away with it once, but after that you're screwed. Yeah. So the fraud I think it's honestly it's one of the number one. Yes, friction it's really keeping a lot of the consumers back. But the consumers are staying back mainly because for them it's a gamble. Do I want to get into a $1 trillion market and go through all this crap just to get in there? I mean, look at oil alone. I mean, gold. I mean, silver even goes over this. It's like so I can jump on my brokerage account and just trade silver. I'll be fine there. And so yes, that is a hiccup, and it's unfortunate for adoption, but it is because of the size of the market that they make that internal gamble in their mind. Whereas if we were to flip the script here and say, well, why is it such a small market? Well, because it's fraud. Because you have fraud. You've got a bunch of anonymous names running around, basically making a heyday out of this thing. It's the Wild West. So that's why institutions and companies and corporations and big money countries and all that, they're very hesitant to move in. They want to. In fact, as you can see on the news, where they're trying to develop CBDCs. They're trying to turn crypto. They're trying to use crypto for its speed and its efficiency and all that, but they're trying to use it in the traditional manner. Because they just don't trust the process. So if we were to come out with a technology that could give them that guarantee, bro, you're looking at that is adoption right there. They will flood in. And the really cool thing about our technology, this is middleware. Like we're not, this is foundational technology. You can build off of this. and that's why we've made it open source. So these institutions, companies, corporations, and governments and whatever, when they come in and they bring their money with them, you best guarantee they're gonna start building with it as well. And so there is now your adoption, because now you've got Amazon is kind of saying, I don't know if I want dollars anymore. I'll take Bitcoin though. If you got some Unbox, that'd be great. But yeah, I think we're good on the dollars. Well, right there, that moment right there, how many people do you think are going to jump into crypto? Like it's going to be immediate, and they're not going to care whatever the hell they have to go through, because now their Amazon account's a threat.
Right. Right. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Does anyone else have anything else to add? Otherwise, I think it's time to maybe wrap things up. If you have a burning share. No? Okay. Brilliant. Well, thank you for just to everyone who contributed. Thank you to all of our esteemed team members for being here and guests. We had a really good turnout today. Good to see all of you. And thank you to everyone who typed in their answers to the question today to contribute to the conversation. We're going to be reviewing all the questions. If you haven't, all the answers. If you haven't typed in your answer yet, you still can in the main chat. And the question is, why aren't all your friends and family members into crypto yet? And 2 of the best answers will receive a prize of 0.025 BNB. We'll announce those later. And yes, thank you so much for being here on the call. We appreciate you. Good luck with this week's game as well. And we will talk to you in 2 weeks for our next AMA, which will be September 14th. And hopefully you can come and be on our guest AMAs. We have one. We'll announce those in the Telegram, but we have one on Friday and we will have one next week as well. So until next time, ciao, ciao.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for the great discussion, guys. Bye.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.